Well, the day that lives in infamy, the day that many Alabama fans, including myself, never knew that would come, but just didn't think it would be a random Wednesday in on January 10th in 2024. But welcome to the Just Sayin Podcast. I'm your host, Sutton Smith, along with another co-host, Jake Osteen, episode 37. This is probably be the best show start for you, probably the worst for me. But let's dive right into. We're going to obviously talk about national championship. We're going to review that boring game that happened a couple nights ago. A few transfer portal updates for you. We'll give our final top 25 and even review our best bets percentages from the year. I'm really interested to see those because I really don't know how well we did. I know that you're the man for that, so that'll be your segment because you
Yeah.
kept up with it. But let's address the rumors to start. Well, not even the rumors. What happened today?
Rumors.
Nick Saban is out at Alabama after 17 seasons, 17 wonderful years. Um, I was actually able to write a story today about this when the news broke. I was at the gym running a mile. I'll set the
Oh,
picture.
let's go.
At the gym running a mile, see a bunch of people crowd around the TV. Like, what's going on? Walk down there. I read the board and it was Paul Feinbaum, and I was like, wow, couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. I mean, I knew this day was coming soon, but I and a lot of Alabama fans thought, 2, maybe 3 more years he has in him. He's got still left in the tank. Thought he'd ride it out with Jalen Milroe at least. After this season, you didn't see him going out with a loss like that in the Rose Bowl. But happy to say I was there for his last game. That makes it even better that I was, even though it was a loss, I was there for it. But man, I can't tell you how grateful as a fan. Jake, all I've known is Nick Saban. My first Alabama game I ever remember watching was the 2008 SEC Championship where we lost to Florida. Nick Saban was the head coach from '07 till today. That's a long time. 17 years, and people understand that never happens. 17 years for a head coach at one stint at a one stint job is insane. And he's the greatest to ever do it. 7 national championships, 6 of them in Alabama, which is six is so many teams have less than 6 national championships, and he alone in 17 years won 6 national championships. I mean, appeared in 8 of the 10 college football national championships, or eight of the 10 college football playoffs. Sorry, and then add on to that the BCS era where he won 3 extra national championship games. So, I mean, truly just the best. You can't say enough about him. Thank you, Coach Saban, for everything you did for the University of Alabama. From the bottom of all Alabama fans' hearts, he's the GOAT. Something's going to be named after him here pretty soon.
Oh, there
Um,
better be.
it kind of like I think it'll be kind of how they did at Georgia with Vince Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium. I think they'll do a Saban Field, Nick Saban Field at Bryant Denny Stadium. I think that's probably what'll happen. But man, you
It
talk
better.
about handing the key to whoever's next, and I'll address that here in a minute. But talking about we talked about Ryan Day starting on third base. You are sliding into home plate right now at Alabama. Whoever gets the
Yeah,
keys
you're
is
way past
sliding
third
in.
base.
Yeah, you are sliding into home plate right now. So yes, it's going to be tough to follow a coach like Nick Saban. Obviously, there isn't a coach like him. It's going to be tough to follow Nick Saban. It's going to be tough to follow the greatest of all time. But Josh Pace, I think, said it beautifully today on his podcast. There are a few guys in the country who have an alpha dog mentality who are made for something like this. And I think, and I'll kind of lead this in. Well, actually, I won't even say that. I think the guy that we are getting is an alpha dog. And I'll talk about him in a minute, but I just want to see what are your thoughts on everything today with Nick Saban.
Yeah, so you set your scene. I had just gotten off of work. I think I got the notification at like 5:07, somewhere around there. But
Four
I was
o'clock my
shopping at
time. Yep.
yeah, I was shopping at Aldi, walking down the aisle, going to get my chicken breast. And I get a notification on my watch. I look down, it's from ESPN, and it says Nick Saban retires. And I'm just like,
Yeah. I think
no,
everybody's reaction.
like I mean, we all know he's old and his health isn't the best. You said his wife's health isn't the best. Prayers for them, but
Yeah.
we know he's old.
Yeah.
We knew it was coming at some point. I had no clue it was coming today. I had no clue it was coming after this year, especially after, I mean, it's not an extremely disappointing year, granted, with how it started, but like still, again, 11-2, 3 straight years without the Natty, which is not a Bama thing. So, I mean, a relatively disappointing year just compared to his Bama standard, and just a random day decides to retire. And he's going to go on and become some face of ESPN, whatever he wants to do. I mean, he doesn't have to do anything. He's probably a billionaire by now.
For
Got a
life.
lot of money. So I mean, it's just crazy. Like you said, great day for us. For I was talking to one of my other Bama friends. I said, great day for anybody not a Bama fan. I mean, with the utmost respect, though, everybody knows he's the greatest to ever do it. I mean, I say it with a lot of respect. I'm so glad he retired. He, I mean, it's good for
And I
him
think
because
that's how
there's
college
so
football fans
unnecessary
feel. You know,
there's so much unnecessary stress that he was going on throughout the games, throughout the season. I mean, when you're 70 something years old, you don't need to be kicking and screaming every single day of your life. So I'm glad he's retired for him, for us Georgia fans, for every fan out there, because now that makes college football at least a little bit easier. And now Kirby Smart is unanimously the best coach in college football now. So
he is.
let's go.
Well, I loved it too, and I love the Auburn reaction to it. Auburn fans rolled Toomer's corner. That makes me just feel even more confident in my Alabama.
That's kind of sad.
It's
That's
it's
sad.
very sad. I mean, it shows you that they truly are a little brother, that we're their Super Bowl, and that they're just that down bad for Alabama. It's amazing to see. I love it. Love the tears of the Auburn fans. Love that Nick Saban's able to get to them like that. But yeah, I mean, you said it. Every other college football fan, it's he's a great coach, the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
When every other fan base in college football are celebrating his retirement, but you
Oh
are
yeah.
celebrating it because everyone respects the heck out of him. You can't not respect him. He did it the right
Oh,
way. He did it
everyone
for the
knows
right
he's the
reason.
greatest to ever do it.
Yeah, everyone, it's unanimous. So everyone respects what he did. Everyone respects how he did it. Um, hated he wasn't able to end it on going out on top, but I legit cannot say so much of my happiness when it comes to sports fandom from my childhood. All of it is due to Nick Saban. I mean, all of it is due to Nick Saban. It's always been Alabama football number one for me. It always will be, and I've never known anyone else besides Nick Saban. So I can't even
And you
say enough
will.
words. You can't keep on talking about it because I mean that's really all I've done since 4 o'clock today. Like the last 6 hours, that's been all that's been on my mind. And probably that's all that will be on my mind for the next few days until the next head coach is retired, or not retired, hired. But let's get into a little bit of the rumors. This is all rumors, all speculation. Nothing's confirmed yet, but have heard from some pretty credible sources on message boards that Dan Lanning is in Tuscaloosa right now. Is supposed to be announced as the next head coach tomorrow morning of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Uh, the team, so the team does now that Saban retired, and so when a coach leaves, the NCAA transfer portal allows a 30-day window for transfers, but in order to be enrolled in class, you can only withdraw from classes before like next week. So players are gonna have to make their decisions relatively quick, like within the next 6 days. So you'll if there are any, I wouldn't say there's not going to be a mass exodus. There may be a few players that leave because of this, and probably newer signees
Caleb Downs.
are the
Caleb
ones that
Downs.
leave. Yeah, Georgia fans are hoping Caleb Downs, but I
I hope
think the
so.
main core of the team from this past year that is returning will stay. So like your Jalen, and I heard today they had a player meeting where Jalen Milroe, Deontay Lawson, Malachi Moore kind of led it. They preached togetherness, sticking together as a team. At least meeting with the next head coach to decide your future before just leaving without even meeting with the next head coach. So, and who knows, maybe players get NIL opportunities elsewhere. I mean, you saw Shadur Sanders on Twitter today saying Alabama players should hit up Colorado, and I'm sure there's going to be other schools that are more than happy to take some players off this team. But I think for the most part, Alabama players will stick together. Um, this is the biggest hire of athletic director Greg Burns' career. I mean, he's hired some really good coaches at Alabama. He hired the new gymnastics coach who's done really well. He just hired the new baseball coach, Rob Bond. He's hired Nate Oates. Nate Oates has taken us to 2 Sweet 16s in 5 years. Uh, this is going to be by far the biggest one. He hasn't had to make a football hire. Nobody has at Alabama in the last 17 years. And I think Nick Saban did help a little bit on this coaching search. And if it is true and Dane Lanning is the guy, which who I'm 99% certain it's going to be Dan Lanning. The other 1% is Lane Kiffin. But I think it will be Dan Lanning, and I think that'll be announced tomorrow. And you've talked about it. We talked about it all year when we talk about Oregon. You talk about the respect you have for Dan Lanning, the admiration that you have for him. He's a great dude. He's a great coach, and you can tell it with his players have loved him when he's at Oregon.
I
And I think
mean,
he's going to do a great job at Alabama. And like I said earlier, you have to when you follow up Nick Saban, you're going to have an alpha mentality. And Dan Lanning is one of the coaches that I believe does have an alpha mentality. Kirby's one of them. Dan Lanning's one of them. I think alpha mentality to me is you don't really care what other people have to say about you, but you're going to be who you are unapologetically, and you're going to go about your business like that. I think Lane Kiffin's one of them too. Um, so I think Dan Lanning is an alpha dog, and I think he's a great coach to be able to replace Saban. Alabama fans have to temper their expectations, though. This is not going to be a Nick Saban coach team. So we're still going to be a very good team year in and year out, but you can't expect to win the national championship every year like you did with Nick Saban. And I think Alabama fans are ready and equipped for that. But the team's going to look a lot different. It's going to things at Alabama are going to be a lot different under Dan Lanning. But I expect very good things from him. I think he's going to be a great head coach. And while I'm very sad about Nick Saban retiring and being done, I mean, I wish he could be the Alabama head coach forever. But I'm
Yeah.
also somewhat excited to see what this next era of football at Alabama is going to be like under Dan Lanning. I mean, as Alabama fans, we've been hearing for years now, like probably the last 5, 6 years, when's Saban going to retire? When's Saban going to retire? So you always think about it in your mind. What's Alabama football going to look like when Saban retires? And now you're actually going to be living in a world where Saban is retired and there's someone else at the helm. And I think that's somewhat frightening, but it's also exciting because I've never known anything but that. So maybe sometimes change is good, but in this case, you're going from the best coach ever. So that's all I really have to say about it. But yeah, truly a day where you'll remember where you were when it happened.
Assuming Dan Lanning does take the position, because I mean, I think that's the hire. I think that's the best hire.
It's a home run hire.
I was around. I was yeah, I was around Dan Lanning for a year and a half inside the same building as him. Love him as a dude. He was the only coach that ever thanked me for filming when, they would be done after practice and they would be doing extra stuff. He would point up to me and ask if I can film, and I'm like, yeah, of course. When he's leaving the building, he'll say thank you to me. And he was the only one that ever did it. So great man. I mean, but he knows X's and O's. I mean, the person he got it from was Kirby Smart. I mean, he's been under him I mean, of course he's at Oregon, but I think he was under him for 8 years, six
He was
years.
the GA for Saban
Because
too. So
Well, he was a GA under Saban, but under Kirby still.
Kirby. Yeah.
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 So I mean, he got all his knowledge from Kirby Smart. I mean, that's the tree that Kirby's starting to build now. So I mean, like you said, can't say enough about the hire if that comes out tomorrow, the next day, whatever it is. I think that's a tremendous hire. But you're right. I mean, it's not going to be a seamless transition. It never is. And granted, Dan Lanning is assuming it's him again, he is taking over the position, sliding into home plate. I mean, it's way better than what Ryan Day was taking over because,
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio
And
State
that
is
was
not
third
Alabama.
base too. And that was third base.
And also, Dan Lanning is a tremendous coach. So it's not going to be exactly seamless, but also this isn't the day and age where Kirby Smart took over, where Nick Saban took over. There's a transfer portal. And so back then you had to build up your class, build up your school, build up your reputation, everything like that inside of your facility. You couldn't just fast track it with the transfer portal. So you saw both of Kirby's and Nick Saban's year ones go not too well. I think we both went 7-6. Y'all had a really bad loss. We had a really bad loss. So Dan Lanning next year probably won't do that. But I mean, their first SEC game is Georgia. And luckily y'all have us at home. We have to go on the road at night. Still going to be a hard game for us. Still going to be a hard game for y'all. I mean, I think it makes it slightly easier for us, but
it just makes that game even more important for both teams.
Yeah, but Dan Lanning is such a good coach, so I think y'all are going to be fine. Everyone knows y'all are going to be fine. But it is interesting. Ryan Williams, the 5-star wide receiver commit, which you know how good he is, decommitted today, and I don't think it's going to be a mass exodus either. But I do think you're going to look back and be like, dang, those are two key players that left that transferred away. I don't think there's going to be a lot. I think somewhere between like 5 and 7. But these are guys that committed to play with Nick Saban, that have played with him for years. The greatest of all time. And so when you go for the greatest of all time and you don't even have the greatest in college football anymore, you probably won't want to play with him, even though if it's Dan Lanning, tremendous. But I mean, let's hope Caleb Downs has that mentality and wants to come to Georgia because dude, imagine Caleb Downs and Malachi Starks. That would be the greatest.
I don't want to. So shut up.
That would be best
don't
ever.
even put that in my mind. But
It's not
and
going to happen,
sure,
but if
it
it
could
did,
happen, but I doubt it. Like you said, it will be a few players, and Ryan Williams was huge. I mean, he was probably going to start for us next year. So yeah, I mean there's gonna be less playmakers on the team next year than there was this year, but still very excited for next season. Alabama's gonna be fine. So let's move on. We'll talk about let's go ahead and just review the national championship. This game, Jake, was not as appealing as I thought it was. I was very excited to watch this game, but when it came down to it, Michigan played bully ball. They did the same thing they've kind of done all year, their trademark on defense. Michael Penix was 27 to 51 for 255 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Had a rough night at the park there. But to me, where it really boils down to for the Washington offense was 20 total carries for 46 yards. We know Dylan Johnson wasn't at full 100% health that night, but it didn't matter. That Michigan front seven was getting after not only the quarterback but the run game, that was where the biggest thing. That was where the biggest advantage for Michigan was that defensive front, in my opinion, and just the fact that Washington wasn't able to make plays. Michael Penix was throwing the ball on so many occasions. I don't know if you noticed this, but so high. I mean, all of his balls were above the receiver's head. Odunze couldn't get to him. That one fourth down, Odunze should have caught that ball. The throw was a little off target, but I thought Odunze could have gotten back to it and made the catch. But in the end, I mean, both of us talked about all year how, or not really all year, but towards the end of the year, how that Georgia Alabama game was the national championship. But I mean, after watching Michigan play Alabama and after watching Michigan play Washington, they were a team of destiny. They were truly, I think, the best team in college football this past year. Um, Good things have happened differently if Georgia had gotten in. Maybe good things had gotten in, happened differently. But the fact is they didn't beat Alabama and they didn't get in. So um, you got to tip your cap to Michigan. You got to tip your cap to that coaching staff that they had. Their players, very senior led, very experienced. JJ McCarthy had a great game. Obviously, Blake Corum had a great game. Donovan Edwards, I mean, his freaking burst off the line. It's just absolutely on those 2 touchdown runs were absolutely insane. So just gotta tip your hat to Michigan. I mean, you can I think I can pretty much keep my review short. I mean, Michigan was the best team in college football this year, and they proved it on Monday night.
yeah, the Cheaters were the best team in college football this year. Hopefully they get it taken away from them. Even though I know they didn't use film to cheat against Bama or Washington, but still, it's just the whole stigma that they won. Really wish they wouldn't have. I was cheering so hard for Washington in the game, and it could have been so different. Yes, Michigan got home a couple times. Also, it is atrocious that Georgia's O-line has not won the Joe Moore Award the last 3 years, at least once. Because 2021, it was obvious they were better than Michigan. Last year, I thought it was obvious they were better than Michigan. And you watched that game when they were playing Michigan, Washington, their O-line sucks. They're not that right tackle, dude. He would number 73. I think he had like 4 false starts, 3 holds, and had a hold on the worst time ever because they converted the one deep ball they had all game, and it was an obvious hold by him. So that O line sucked. And granted, like I said, Michigan's D line, their defense, they're good. They got home a couple times, but Michael Penix just had a really bad day. That's
Yeah,
what it was. Michael Penix missed probably 8
plenty,
throws.
plenty of throws, maybe more than that.
And and no, he missed 8 throws he would that anyone would pretty much make. Um, and then especially if you compare him to how he played against Texas to the throws he makes when he's really on, he probably missed like 12 to 13. I mean, I think it's obvious if Michael Penix was the what bowl did the Cotton Bowl player that he was, I think they win. Because it was game. It was
Their role,
17 to
yeah.
10 going into the it was 17 to 10 going into the fourth, I think. It was 17-10 for a really long time because there was like 20 minutes of the middle of the game where neither offense could do anything.
Mm-mm.
Because at first I thought it was just going to be a blowout by Michigan once they got those 2 quick touchdowns. But then Washington's defense played really, really well. Granted, JJ McCarthy is not very good. I saw a mock draft today, mocking him to pick number 12, which would be
Yeah.
horrible. Don't know why whatever program would do that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just sad. Because Washington's better than that. Michael Penix is better than that. Their offense is better than that. And they didn't play up to their standards, and that's not what a national championship team does. Um, I mean, if they did, it could have been different. I think they would have won if Michael Penix played well. And also, I would have been $40 richer because Michael Penix was like 40 yards away from hitting his over, and I bet Rome Odunze over half a touchdown. And so if he would have just hit on that one wide open touchdown for like 60 yards, both would have hit, and I would have been richer, and they probably would have been an natty. And we wouldn't be having this discussion about the cheaters winning. So I don't have
Can't take
respect for
away
Michigan. I'm not.
can't take away much Michael Penix. I mean, he had a great season. Sometimes the magic just runs out
Oh
though.
yeah,
He had a great
yeah.
season, but when you're facing one of the probably the best defense in college football this year in Michigan, I think they are. Just from watching, I was able to watch Alabama, I was able to watch Georgia this year, I was able to watch Michigan, watch all three of those teams in person. Really, the only other two that you can even compare is Ohio State and Penn State in terms of defense. But to me, Michigan
I
just jumped out as the best. They not only they had the best front seven, but they also were playing pretty lockdown ball back in the secondary as well. So, and yeah,
I
JJ
was I
McCarthy,
was
10
gonna
of
say
18 for 140. He was fine, but yeah,
I was gonna say one thing I was looking forward to watching in this game was Will Johnson versus Rome Odunze. Will Johnson, the sophomore, going to
yeah.
be a top two, top three cornerback next year in the draft. Rome Odunze was cooking him the whole game, and he got away. I mean, he got flagged, I think, 3 times for holds because he was trying to hold him all night. He got away with probably 2 or 3 more. There was one on the very first drive that they had to kick the field goal that he had an obvious hold on, and they didn't call it. Don't know why. Um, but I thought Rome Odunze did a great job, and I think he proved that he's a top 2 receiver in this draft. I think he should be taken second over Malik Neighbors because he's a dog. And Will Johnson is really good. Like you said, their secondary is really good. I mean,
Yeah.
that's their best player on defense, in my opinion, Will Johnson, because he's absolutely locked down. He's up there.
Chris
Um,
Jenkins is good too. They're I think there's an interior D lineman. Chris
are you talking
Jenkins
about Brandon Graham?
is I maybe I'm talking about Brandon Graham. And then also Junior
I
Colson,
have no clue.
linebacker. Junior Colson, their linebacker
He
is
was
really
pretty. He was pretty good.
Sarah Still, number 0. Santa Still, Sarah Still, I don't remember his
Yeah,
last name. He's pretty good.
he's
But I mean, they did have they had a great defense all season, and that's what they prided themselves on. But
yeah.
yeah, I don't think JJ McCarthy's bad. I think he'll probably be a good backup in the NFL. But yeah, he's certainly not the most impressive quarterback, but he did just enough for them. I mean, he doesn't really turn the ball over, which is something you need in a quarterback. And he's very smart with the ball. Like I said, game manager, not in a negative way, not in a negative connotation, but he's very good at managing a football game. So,
Yeah. I think that's all we both have to say. So
you want to move to top
let's
25?
jump in. Yeah, let's jump into our final top 25. Go ahead and kick us off. Mine didn't change much. The top 8 did, but outside of
Mine
that, not
actually
much.
changed a decent bit. Like I have a bunch
I
of
don't
I have a bunch
I
of
don't
changes.
learn much from bowl season. I mean, you have so many people sitting out. Doesn't really matter.
That's true. But for me, 25 through 21 are all former teams that had unranked that I put up in the top 25 now to end the season. At 25, I've got Kansas. At 24, this will be interesting. USC. I have USC at 24. Uh,
Had to.
at 23, I have West Virginia. They had a great actually want to talk about a dude. What's their head coach's name? Neil Brown. Neil Brown. Dude was on the hot seat at the beginning of the year. They ended up going
The
9.
hottest, the
Yeah, he's
hottest
on
of
the
hot seat.
hottest hot seat, and they went 9-4. So great season for West Virginia. At 22, I've got Oklahoma State, and at 21, I've got Memphis, who had a very good year all season as well from the group of 5 ranks. So look out for
Yeah.
Memphis next year.
Yeah, my 25 through 15 did not change. Number 25, I got Troy, 24 Kansas State, 23 A&M, 22 Tulane, 21 NC State. I just think what we learn in the season what means way more than when half their team sits out in the bowl game and plays whoever.
Well, I also am doing my power. So maybe we're doing it different too, because my power ratings are kind of on how the team was at the end of the year before opt-outs and all that, but also taking into account injuries as well. So with that being said, 20 for me, Florida State down 12 spots to number 20 is Florida State. I think with all the injuries they incurred, even with all that talent that they had, I mean, I still think there are 19 teams in college football that are better than Florida State. I mean, and one of those at 19, I've got Liberty. I think if Liberty plays Florida State on a neutral field, even with the injury to Jordan Travis, I still think Liberty beats them. At 18, as a team that you were pretty high on all year, I have Clemson up 3 spots, number 18. At 17, I've got Utah, and at 16, I've got Oklahoma.
20, I got Oklahoma State, 19, SMU, 18, Notre Dame, 17, my Beavers, Oregon State, and then 16, Clemson.
Yeah, so for me at 15, I've got Tennessee. At 14, I've got Kansas State. At 13, I've got Notre Dame. At 12, I have Penn State. And at 11, I have LSU.
Okay. Yeah, mine's about the same. Oklahoma 15 that you already said. Tennessee's at 14 for me. The one difference, I have FSU at 13. I mean, if you take out opt-outs, I think they can compete with a lot of teams in the country. Even without Jordan Travis. If you throw Tate Rodmaker back there, I think they'd be okay.
Maybe.
12, I have Penn State, and 11, I have Ole Miss. Because that playoff or that game meant a lot for both teams. And Penn State kept it close for a half. But also keep in mind they were without their 4 best players on defense and then lost their star sophomore linebacker, Abdul Carter. So again, like how much can you take away from that game?
Abdul Carter is going to be a dog. 10-6.
Not gonna. He is.
Yeah.
He is a dog.
Cracking the top 10 for the first time all year. Arizona at number 10. They definitely.
I've been trying to tell you.
Great year for Jeff. Great year.
When did I rank them in my top 10?
I think you did that like maybe 3 weeks left in the year. So you've been on it. And I had been on them in the top 25. I just hadn't believed top 10 ability. But yeah, they finished in the year number 10 for me. Down 2 spots, number 9, I've got Ohio State. Up 2 spots, number 8, I've got Ole Miss. Up 2 spots, number 7, I've got Missouri. And then at number 6, I've got Oregon.
Oh, yeah, ours are very, very similar. I have LSU at 10, Arizona at 9, Ohio State 8, Missouri 7, and then Oregon 6 as well.
Yeah. Number 5 for me, I've got Georgia. Number 4, I've got Texas. Number 3, I've got Washington. Number 2, I've got Alabama. And number 1, I have Michigan. That'll close out the year. I think if Alabama would have played Washington or Texas on a neutral field, I think Alabama wins both of those games. And I think you saw a really bad game from Alabama against Michigan, but like I said, I've said in the last 2 shows, you got to give Michigan a lot of credit. Not only did they outcoach Alabama and outcoach Washington, but they also had the players and the senior experience to do so. So all the credit to Michigan. I know they're cheaters. Probably going to be an asterisk next to this national championship, but as for right now, they're sitting pretty with it. So I'll give them their flowers.
Yeah. My 5 is Texas, then Washington, Georgia at 3, Bama 2, Michigan 1. I mean, Georgia played a bad game against Bama. Who knows what happens if we make the field goal, if they call the Isaiah Bond no catch. If we don't fumble, who knows? I mean, one bounce of the ball is different. We could have won the Natty. So I think we were definitely better than Texas and Washington. I think Georgia, Bama, Michigan were the 3 obvious teams, just how physical they are and the nature that they play with. And I mean, all 3 of those games or all 3 of those teams could win on different fields. Like I said, it's just the way the ball bounces once can change everything. So,
yeah. And it was a great season. Can't wait for us to be doing some more top 25s. And I'm sure we'll do our next top 25 will be our top 25 going into the 2024 college football season a few months from now. So looking forward to getting back into watching some games. I hate that the season's over, but still got NFL. But Jake, you're the guy for this next segment. Let's review our best bets percentages of the season. I want to see how both of us did. If I had to fight on a limb, I think you might have beaten me. I think you probably would have beaten me. But it was probably really close. Just in our college football pick'em, guys, for y'all don't know, we pick a bunch of college football games every week. We pick the spread. Me and Jake tied perfectly. We both had 195. We were like 195 out of like 373. So we ended up like 52%. So pretty funny that we ended up literally tied in with such a amount that we shouldn't have been. So
yeah. So I mean, these are our best bets. These are the ones we're picking, and we did terrible at the very start. Like the first 4 weeks, we were not good. We were both under 50%. So it's really impressive that we ended with these percentages.
Yeah.
We had 163 best bets. I hit 93 out of 163, which was good for 56.7%. And you hit 88 out of 163, good for 53.66%. So we both, and the way it works is, I mean, if you're betting on things that are 50-50, which all of these are, to make money, you have to go, you win 51% of your bets. So if I won almost 57% of my bets and you won almost 54% of your bets, we're both making money. And
Yeah.
especially if you take out those first 4 weeks, we're
Making a
we're
lot of
close to
money.
60%. So I mean, next year the goal is to not be absolutely abhorrent the first 4 weeks. That way we can actually make some money. If you put your money there, I might next year. Just by the way, historical averages. I mean, it might prove to be beneficial for me in the future. Don't know. We'll give next year a look. Just maybe put 100 in for the whole season. See what happens with my money. Who knows?
But
But
you also have to think
56% I'm happy with.
we can't beat ourselves up too much about those first 4 weeks because Alabama is a perfect example. Alabama in week 2 was
Oh
completely
yeah.
different than Alabama was in week 12. So you don't really know a lot about the teams in those early weeks. And the teams obviously can get better, they can get worse. So those first 4 weeks are always going to be the toughest. So if you are listening to our bets and placing money on it, maybe you should just wait till about week 5 next year to before you start putting some money on these because who knows how close we're actually going to be because
Yeah.
until these teams play for a few times, we're not going to get a good feel on them. And that's how anybody
I
is.
mean, like, yeah, like some of my bets right here. I had USC minus 30 against San Jose State. Obviously, if I could look back now, I would not do that. South Carolina's minus 2.5 against UNC. Obviously, shouldn't have done that one.
Yeah.
A&M minus 4 against Miami. Shouldn't have done that one. Maybe I would think so, but Auburn minus 6.5 against Cal. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So just some really bad ones.
Yeah.
Uh
It
oh,
happens.
Ole Miss versus Tech. I took Tech plus 20, which honestly wasn't terrible. I would probably do that one again because it was really close. I think it took a close to a last minute touchdown from Ole Miss, like with 4 minutes left or so. So yeah, not terrible. I'm excited to see how next year goes.
Yeah. On a side note, I'm actually because we're about to talk transfer portal a little bit, and some stuff's happened with Alabama, and obviously there's stuff that's going to happen more with Alabama, but also teams across the country. I'm actually looking at an article I wrote earlier today, Jake. Listen to this. Listen to this little paragraph I have here. It said not only will the Tide return several key players on both sides of the ball for the 2024 season, like quarterback Jalen Milroe and safety Caleb Downs, big possibility now could go to Georgia. But the Crimson Tide already have the second best odds to win the 2024 national championship. Not to mention Nick Saban will seemingly remain on the sidelines for his 18th season at the capstone. I wrote that today at 1 o'clock, 3 hours before Nick Saban decided to retire. So my words were put right back in my mouth. But just a few updates for Alabama in terms of transfer portal. Malik Benson, former star receiver, now at Florida State, is going to go there. Monkel Goodwine, former D lineman at South Carolina. Isaiah Hastings, former D lineman at Missouri. Fifth string quarterback from this year, Eli Holstein going to Pitt. Earl Little, backup corner, going to Florida State. Seth McLaughlin, the center that I'm sure all Alabama fans love, has committed to Ohio State.
Ohio
Uh,
State.
and then actually, I think today somebody else committed today. Ian Jackson may have committed somewhere. I forget where, but
Are you talking about?
for Alabama.
Oh, did
But
you already say
Roydell Williams
Isaiah?
has entered the portal. Christian Story has entered the portal. Jake Pope has entered the portal. So we've had some guys enter the portal pretty recently. And then also
Terrence Ferguson?
Terrence Ferguson, yeah. Jace McClellan entered the NFL draft today as well. He was one of the ones we were still waiting to hear from. Trez Marshall, your guy is also in the NFL draft, entered the 2024 NFL draft. So there's definitely Alabama had a total of 17 guys in the transfer portal, 11 entering the NFL draft. So that's about 32% of the team. So that's about a third of the team from this past year that won't be there, with probably more to come. And then obviously three new newcomers. We already know about LT Overton, but Nikhil Bertrand, he'll be a reserve O lineman next year from Texas A&M. He's a former 4-star. Should be probably the backup left tackle or right tackle next year. And then the big one, Damani Jackson, the corner from USC, going to be competing for a starting role next year for Terrion spot, really. So there's a lot still left to be going on with the Tide, especially after today. But Yeah, that's really all I've got for Alabama. I know there's some stuff going on with Georgia too. Quarterback there, interesting little
Yeah,
situation.
not too much going on except for this thing. So Georgia has been in the shopping of a portal QB, not to be a starter. Obviously, Carson Beck's coming back, but just as a depth piece. Kirby has always liked to have 4 scholarship QBs on the roster, and we only have 3 right now. And so we weren't looking for, a guy who wants to be a starter. But I think we reached out to Malik Murphy, but as far as I know, that's the only QB we reached out to. Um, that was like a starting caliber player. So
And that was
Jaden
still when
Mayava,
Beck's future was in kind of,
yeah,
we
no,
still didn't know
you're
about Beck's
right.
future. Yeah.
So Jaden Mayava he was a redshirt freshman at UNLV and was the Mountain West Freshman of the Year. Had a really good year, led the UNLV, whatever the Rebels,
Yep.
to 9-4, I think. 17 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a little bit over 3,000 yards. He's 6'4", 220. Looks the part, definitely. But I mean, a freshman from UNLV doesn't really say much, but he entered the portal, don't know when. Um, but it looked like it was a lock to USC. And then all of a sudden, Georgia was getting a lot of buzz. And then I found out that he was going to commit the day before he committed. I think that was Monday. Let me check this post real quick. 2 days ago. Yeah. So he committed Monday to Georgia. Um, and then all of a sudden, so we were happy. He's about to be our third string QB because I don't think he was going to start next year either. I thought it was weird how he would come to Georgia over USC, where USC, he has a chance to start next year over Miller Moss. I think he has a real possibility to do that. Georgia, he doesn't have a shot to start over Carson Beck. Georgia really likes Gunnar Stockton, and I think he showed us why in the bowl game
Well,
against FSU.
he played well.
Um, I don't think he had a shot at over starting over Gunnar Stockton next year. So don't really understand why he was coming. Anyway, he was coming, going to be a third string QB, just going to be a depth piece this year, compete for a starting spot next year. Anyway, wake up this morning and I find out at like midnight last night that Jaden Mayava flipped to USC. Makes not a lot of sense. Makes sense why he's going to USC. Doesn't make sense why
He
like
committed
almost
to Georgia.
24 hours
Yeah.
after he committed to Georgia, he flips. I think it was an NIL thing. That's kind of what I've heard. USC offered some more money, maybe sold him on a starting spot. I don't really know. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it is what it is. Wasn't I mean, he was just a depth piece for us. So maybe we can go in and get someone like Dylan Lonergan if he enters. Because I mean, I think he would have a chance of starting over Gunnar Stockton. I think that would be an actual battle. Um, so if he leaves, we'll see. I think we're still going to get a portal QB. We'll see who it is. Again, not going to be somebody insane. Just going to be somebody if Carson gets hurt, if Gunnar gets hurt, he's there to back him up. So. We'll see.
Always good to
But
have
the
position.
biggest do what?
It says always good to have depth at that position, just in case
Yeah.
something goes wrong.
The biggest commitment we've seen the last few days, and it was crazy when he entered. Quinshon Judkins. I was getting a haircut the other day when I was leaving. It was last Thursday. I was leaving. And I got a notification that Quinshon Judkins was entering the portal, which is very weird because Ole Miss is being ranked as a top 5 team already, which is that is absolutely insane. I don't think they should be. I think they should be hovering around the 8 to 9 range, in my opinion. Um, but they've stacked that defense. Their offense is already good, and he was another piece in that machine. And then all of a sudden he leaves, and then it gets dropped that he's a selfish guy, that he's about himself. And then all of a sudden he commits to Ohio State yesterday, or maybe this morning. I think it was yesterday. But I mean, that's especially if Travion Henderson stays. I mean, that's crazy. That's the best duo. It's that and then Nick Singleton and Katron Allen.
Yeah.
But that's probably better because that's crazy.
Yeah.
Quinshon and Travion. We'll
I
see
have
what
heard
happens
that
with.
Travion's thinking about NFL though, because he is
I've heard both.
I think he's the second rated running back in the class. Trey Benson is rated ahead of him, but even that, yeah, I
So
saw a point like that to that too. But
a long time ago, I heard he was looking for NFL. Then around bowl season, I heard he was coming back. and now I guess I'm hearing NFL again. I think it's 50-50. Flip a coin,
It
we'll
is.
see.
It
Uh,
Now you got to think too.
I
Running
think it,
backs don't get drafted in the first round anymore, so that's
yeah.
not really a thing. I think he would go in the second round if he went though, which is probably best case scenario for a guy like him too. So
But look, I mean, if I'm Ohio State, if I'm Ryan Day, I'm telling him you can get more money here than you will in the NFL. And then also, I mean, you kind of preserve your draft stock because you're getting another should be round one caliber running back, but another top three caliber running back. Um, so you're gonna get some off time. You're gonna be on the bench a little bit,
carries.
but it's gonna help you in the long run. It's just like how Nick Chubb and Sony Michel were. Both pretty much went in the first round. Nick Chubb went 34th overall. But I mean, both of them were first round caliber running backs, and it helped each other that they didn't have to get the bulk of the carries, that they could
Alabama
split
did it
them.
for years too. I mean, with Damian Harris and Bo Scarborough and Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs
Yeah.
really turned out to be the only one that was great at the NFL. But think about it, Damian Harris was the starter over Josh Jacobs and Bo Scarborough. He had so many
Yeah.
carries in college and preserved Josh Jacobs to be and that's just how it is at the NFL and at the NFL
So
level, college and college
yeah,
running backs. But you don't want to see him.
it'll
It would be terrible to see him get hurt, like tear an ACL or something, because then
yeah.
you are losing money then. So
The only other significant thing I think that's happened in the portal as of late is DJ Lundy, the guy that opted. He's a
yeah,
really good linebacker from FSU. Opted out of the game to play Georgia, transferred to Colorado. All of a sudden today announced that he's returning back to FSU, even though he opted out of the game. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I mean that's huge for FSU. And they have a really good transfer class. I mean they got a West Virginia D lineman. I know they got
couple guys from
Malik
Alabama.
Benson. Wasn't that great this year, but has the potential to be really good. They got a corner from Miami who's supposed to be good. So, I mean, they have a really good transfer class. We'll see what they do.
Corner from Alabama too, and Earl Little mentioned him earlier. But back to your
Yeah.
point about Dylan Lonergan, I don't see him leaving because he also plays on the baseball team. He's a relief pitcher for our
Oh,
baseball team
does
as well. Yeah. So
then I really
I'm
won't.
hoping to see him on the diamond because we need some help in pitching. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see, and we'll know a lot more in the coming 2 or 3 days once the head coach is announced, and then obviously in the coming hours after that. The players really only have like a week left to transfer. So, but yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up. A shorter show tonight, but I mean, we hit the main points, and the show was planning on being a lot shorter, and I wish it was. I wish the Nick Saban news would have never happened, but sometimes it just happens, and you know when you're in the media, Jake's kind of getting introduced to the media here doing the podcast, but stuff like this happens just all the time on a whim, and you just got to be able to adjust to it, and
Got to roll with
that's
the
what your
punches.
boys did with the Just Saying podcast. We adjusted like pros. So with that
Yes,
being said, it's always roll tide
dude.
for me. Always roll tide for
You
me.
you didn't really say it. The 2023 season is now officially over.
It
That was the
is.
last
It
game,
is. Yeah.
and
Mm,
so I think that officially ends season one of Just
it
Saying
does.
Podcast.
After 37 podcasts, that's a lot. We racked up a lot.
I
More
know
to come. More to come.
that's
So
that's
we'll still
37.
do
No,
and
I was
we'll
gonna
still do
say
one.
that's
Sorry.
37 plus hours of that's 37 plus hours of this, which
That's
is
yeah.
crazy. Oh,
Maybe even
pretty
multiple.
much one semester.
Yeah. I mean, I would say we're in the 70-hour range probably in total time on here, which is crazy to think. But yeah, we did a lot. So and we'll continue to do one episode each week over the off season. Maybe even ramp it back up towards spring ball because once spring intel starts coming in,
I don't know.
well, at least our content will
I'm
be
so busy this
our
semester. I'm not
content will
gonna
be
lie.
ramped up because I'm this
Yeah,
is the best spring. I'm so excited for the spring game now. I mean, it'll just be a completely different atmosphere for Alabama. So I'm going to be tuned in. I'm going to be excited, even though I won't even be a student here next year. So, um, but yeah, we appreciate all y'all's support. Remember to like, subscribe, tell some people about us. And we thank you guys. So roll tide, and we'll see you next time.
and go dogs, baby.